It's Kansas City, 1920. The 18-year-old fledgling artist Walt Disney has been experimenting for some time with an old borrowed camera out in the family garage. After meeting at a commercial art agency, he and UB Iwerks try forming their own business, but it folds after barely a month, and they both go to work for the Kansas City Film Ad Company. At Film Ad, they're exposed to primitive animation techniques, and Walt and UB learn a lot. On his own, aiming at just a local audience, Walt creates a silent short called Laugh-O-Gram and gets it booked into the Newman Theater in downtown Kansas City. There's just one fully animated segment, handmade by Walt, but Newman orders more. So Walt starts making Laugh-O-Grams at night, wisely not letting go of his day job. While delivering Laugh-O-Grams and still clocking in full-time at Film Ad, he starts on Little Red Riding Hood, the first in a series of modernized fairy tales. It takes 6 months to complete. Walt quits Kansas City Film Ad, rents an office, and on May 23rd incorporates his first cartoon company, Laugh-O-Gram Films. He's all of 20 years old. First on the shopping list are a used camera and his own printing and processing equipment. He persuades UB to come and work for him, and they take out their first trade advertisement, offering a package of 12 cartoons. They aren't exactly besieged with orders, but Walt signs a contract with Pictorial Clubs, a distributor that shows educational films through churches and schools. Walt learns business the hard way when Pictorial takes delivery but pays only a fraction of what they owe. At the end of the year, he's close to shutting down, but a local dentist hires him to shoot a live-action film about dental care aimed at school kids. 10 years later, Tommy Tucker's Tooth is still being shown in grade schools throughout the Midwest. Walt makes a sing-along short called Song-O-Reel, and so meets Carl Stalling, a movie theater organist. Their paths will cross many times in future years. Disney moves into a smaller office and starts working on Alice's Wonderland, putting a live-action little girl into a cartoon world. He's also been producing short joke reels called Laughlets to avoid bankruptcy, but it isn't working. Laugh-O-Gram goes under, leaving the Alice project half-finished. In August, Walt packs up and moves to Los Angeles with $40 in his wallet and the Alice sample reel. He talks his brother Roy into throwing in with him, and together they set up headquarters in their uncle's garage. Meanwhile, Margaret J. Winkler, a New York cartoon distributor, is searching for new material. She orders 6 Alice cartoons with an option on 6 more. The Disneys buy a camera for $200 and rent a tiny office for $10 a month. And so Alice is launched. Walt and Roy move to a vacant storefront on Kingswell Avenue and christen it the Disney Brothers Studio. After the first Alice comedy premieres, UB Iwerks is enticed to leave Kansas City and joins the young Disney team. But more help is needed. Some of the other old staffers from Kansas City link up with the Disneys in Hollywood. 2 cameramen are added to the company roster, and a couple of young women are hired on as inkers and painters. One of them, Lillian Bounds, also doubles as a secretary. She catches Walt's eye, so he buys himself a new suit and goes calling on Lily. Margaret Winkler's husband, Charles Mintz, starts taking more control over her business. And by the summer of 1924, Disney finds itself almost exclusively with Mintz. December 31st, they cut a deal for the second season of Alice, 18 films this time. But Mintz also cuts the budget. On July 13th, Walt marries Lillian in Lewiston, Idaho. After the honeymoon, work begins on the fabled Hyperion Avenue studio, the first time the brothers acquire a building specifically constructed to meet their animation needs. And Roy recommends that they make an important change. He thinks they ought to call it the Walt Disney Studio. A new contract with Charles Mintz on the third batch of Alice's calls for 26 of them, and they finish off their first picture in the Hyperion studio, Alice Charms the Fish. Their cartoons start getting playdates in Europe, and the studio's output grows in stature, although Alice herself only appears in bookends to each comedy. That's because Walt is relying more and more on pure animation. Charles Mintz agrees to a new all-animated series for the next cycle of films. Disney settles with Mintz for 26 installments and expands his staff again, while polishing off the final Alice films. From 1924 to 1927, the Disneys have created a total of 56 silent Alice cartoons.
It is within the Alice series to which we will discover that Disney, from its inception, was a pedophilic institution. It was the 4-year-old child actor Virginia Davis who initially played the role of Alice in the first successful Disney films. These films were revolutionary in that they merged a real-life child actor with hand-drawn animation. For this analysis, we will take a closer look at these Alice films, their pedophilic undertones, and their temporal implications on modern society. Alice's Wonderland, 1923. Produced in the early 1920s, we find the Alice film series. The Alice character is played by 4-year-old child actor Virginia Davis. One of the common themes presented throughout the Alice series is the notion that the character Alice is independent of her parents' guidance. In other words, Alice is projected as a child that is responsible for herself, often venturing into places that she has never been and interacting with people that she has never met. As we continue in our expose of the subliminal pedophilic undertones in children's films, it is important that we remember that the notion of the child as being independent, responsible, and able to make its own decisions is one of the perverse logics used by pedophiles to justify the rape and molestation of children. We will find this general logic in our investigations of future films, both of the makings of Disney as well as other media powerhouses. For continuity across our analysis, we will call this general logic the pedophilic perception and projection of the child as an adult. This pedophilic projection is the basis upon which we find Alice's initial interactions with the male animators within the film Alice's Wonderland as seen here.